What makes a good Christmas special? What elements does one look towards when determining the quality of holiday-themed entertainment? Between its specific aims and trappings and the sheer abundance of it produced in the last 50-plus years, Christmas media is a genre all to itself. While you can find specials for just about any holiday, they pale in comparison to the monolithic presence of Christmas. Halloween is the only thing that comes close, but getting spooked is not an exclusive thing you do in a certain time of year. Horror and the macabre have universal year-round appeal. You can still enjoy a haunted house story in February in a country that doesn't celebrate Halloween. You can't really say the same for Christmas. Its boundaries in calendar and culture keep it constrained in a way not seen in other genres, but those constraints don't seem to have stopped the world from producing thousands of hours of material. So, what makes a good Christmas special? I suppose you can split Christmas media into three subgenres. First, you have the religious material, the stuff that directly addresses the holiday's Christian origins with the Nativity, the birth of Jesus Christ. Most of this stuff can be critiqued as religious art, and since the details of this specific story are largely agreed upon, the artistry is in the unique way it presents those details. The second subgenre concerns our building mythology around Christmas. Santa Claus, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, characters and ideas that are still relatively new and not set in stone. Without the perceived objectivity of religion, you can play around with them a lot more. Baby Jesus being abducted by aliens will probably net you some angry glares, but Santa being abducted by aliens, that's a perfectly acceptable concept. The evolving nature of modern Christmas mythology is fascinating in its own right, but that's not the subject of this video. Maybe next year. No, today we're going to be talking about the third subgenre, that of stories about people celebrating Christmas. On one hand, this is the most flexible type of Christmas special. You can tell pretty much any story you want to as long as it takes place during December and there's some connection to the holiday, however strong or weak you want it. Home Alone didn't need to take place on Christmas, but adding Christmas elements into it gives the film extra texture, and since many people who celebrate Christmas strongly associate it as a time to reunite with family, Christmas strengthens the film's own themes of the importance of family. On the other hand, it can lead to some pretty lazy storytelling. The vast majority of Christmas specials involve characters from a pre-existing intellectual property celebrating Christmas, either as standalone specials or as regular episodes of such and such show. Now, you can certainly make a good version of this. A Charlie Brown Christmas falls into this category, but it can easily fall into a rut where you just do the same thing you do in every other episode. It's just there's a Christmas tree in the living room and surprise snow at the end. Oh, and if you're especially lazy, your children's show characters just sing Christmas carols for 20 minutes.
Take the holes with pepperoni, fa la 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 la. Mustard, eggplant, and bologna, fa la 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 la.
The best of these tend to be the ones that actually have something to say about the holiday. A Charlie Brown Christmas, one of the most beloved and longest lasting of these kind of specials, asks what are the things we value about Christmas, and then questions if we're valuing them correctly. It isn't just the Peanuts walking around in the snow and singing Hark the Herald Angels Sing. With all that in mind, I want to talk about my personal favorite Christmas special, A Muppet Family Christmas. At a cursory glance, it's easy to pass this off as another piece of that established franchise plus Christmas pie. The thing does end with 8 minutes of Muppets doing nothing but singing Christmas carols, but I'm here to argue that it nails the two things required to make a good Christmas special. It's both an entertaining standalone product, and it has something interesting to say about Christmas. So let's get into the nitty-gritty and see what makes this thing tick.
The holly, we're heading home so we can start to celebrate. Fill up the stockings, we may be rushing things, but we can hardly wait now. For we need a little Christmas right this very minute. Candles in the window, carols at the spinet. Yes, we need a little Christmas right this very minute. It hasn't snowed a single flurry. Fozzie, we're all in a hurry.
A Muppet Family Christmas premiered on ABC on December 16th, 1987, and its central gimmick, if you want to call it as such, is that it's a massive crossover between all the major Jim Henson properties up to that time, namely the Muppets, Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock, and the Muppet Babies, plus introducing a couple of fun new characters. Yeah, I was a huge fan of the Muppets growing up, and seeing all these characters interact on such a scale was basically my Avengers moment. The plot is as such. Fozzie Bear is bringing all of his friends to his mother's house in the country under the assumption that his mother is lonely and would rather have a Christmas with a lot of people. In reality, Ma Bear is planning on spending Christmas in Florida and is renting the house out to Fraggle Rock's Doc and his dog Sprocket. The Muppets' arrival throws everyone's plans out of whack, and an oncoming snowstorm means pretty much everybody is staying the night. All 700 of them. Oh my god, look at all these Muppets. It's like Jim Henson was asked which Muppets they should bring out of storage, and his response was,
"Bring me everyone." What do you mean everyone?
well, except for Sweetums. Only got room for one of the large characters, and I'm afraid everybody's got to bow out for Big Bird. I tried counting all the individual Muppets on display, and there's at least 100 of them. Maybe as many as 120? That's a lot of felt to keep track of and manage, and it could have been overwhelming for audiences if they were all dumped onto the screen all at once. But the Muppet team know what they're doing. They've been doing it successfully for 30 years at this point. Basically, there's two tricks they use to keep all of this organized: spacing out introductions and layering scenes. Spacing things out is probably self-evident. The special starts with a core group of Muppets: Kermit, Fozzie, Gonzo, the Electric Mayhem, but not everybody you would come to associate with the Muppet Show. Characters like the Swedish Chef and Rolf the Dog gradually get drip-fed into the setting, establishing the idea that people are showing up at different times. And then BAM! Here comes the Sesame Street gang! While this special, being a big Henson production crossover, wasn't kept a secret per se, it's largely downplayed in its marketing. None of the Sesame Street and Fraggle Rock characters show up on any of the box art for the VHS or DVD versions of the special. By the way, don't get those. They're like really cut up. Find the special online. You can find it incomplete. And in the old television commercials for this thing I found on YouTube, you do see Sesame Street characters, but those could just easily be, cameos. Doesn't mean it's a major part of the special. But nope. 16 minutes in, the cast effectively doubles, and characters that have never interacted before finds themselves in the same house, and it is glorious to behold. This is where the heart of the special's humor is derived, watching iconic characters that we have known and loved for decades cross paths for the first time.
Oh, hi there. Hey, we're Ernie and Bert.
Yeah. Well, hi there yourself. I'm Doc.
Oh, did you know that Doc starts with the letter D?
Why, yes.
Yes starts with the letter Y.
Yeah.
True.
And true starts with the letter T.
Hey, what is this?
Where we come from, this is small talk.
Look what I've got! Christmas cookies!
Cookies! Oh, thank you.
Who was that strange blue creature?
That my kind of fella.
All this bouncing off each other, accumulating to the Swedish Chef attempting to murder Big Bird with a mallet. Holy crap. But then, once we're used to this new dynamic, the special introduces the Fraggle Rock characters. They're not quite as involved as the Sesame Street characters, largely due to their nature. The Fraggles are subterranean and don't really get out that often, but they do have their role to play that I'll touch upon later. What spacing these characters out does is give the special a certain rhythm, a beat that keeps it from both getting too stale and too overwhelming. The other method used for crowd control, for lack of a better term, is something I call layering. Simply put, foreground your important characters, the ones who are talking, the ones involved with the plot, while keeping the secondary characters just out of focus in the background, just slightly moving. Muppets as tapestry, for you to notice on repeat viewings. Some of these frames are built like pages of Where's Waldo, and you glance over and, oh hey, it's Oswald, Oscar the Grouch's Puerto Rican cousin. Some of the joy in rewatching this special is spotting Muppets I didn't catch the first time around. I mean, it's not quite Jacques Tati, but it's up there. You know how you can tell this special is old? Elmo is regulated to a background character. He's there, but he doesn't have any lines. He's part of the chorus, but never gets a solo. That feels so unheard of these days. So yeah, A Muppet Family Christmas definitely handles its presentation, but none of that matters if there isn't some meat on them bones. And thankfully, this special has a strong thematic core that is both pretty universal and resonant with the Christmas holiday in particular. See, while this special is called A Muppet Family Christmas, there's only two sets of characters who are actually blood related. Fozzie Bear and his mother, Kermit the Frog and his nephew Robin. I'm talking like speaking roles here. Wait, are any of the Fraggles related to each other? I'll admit that Fraggle Rock is kind of my blind spot in the Muppet sphere. I watched a lot of it, I just didn't really retain a lot of it. Anyway, the point is that there isn't a lot of what would be commonly recognized as the family unit in this special. You know, parents, children, grandparents, grandchildren, uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, that kind of thing. These kind of relations are largely absent here. So what does the family in Muppet Family Christmas really pertain to? I think there's two answers to that, and both lead into what I believe to be the central message of the special. Christmas is about family, and family is what you make of it. So who are the two families here? In the majority of projects involving the Muppets, there are the core Muppets. Kermit, Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Gonzo, Rolf the Dog, etc. They are portrayed as struggling artists. The Muppet Show is about the Muppets running a music hall variety show that's always on the verge of collapsing. The Muppet Movie is about them trying to make it big in Hollywood. The Muppets Take Manhattan is about them struggling to break into Broadway. Fozzie Bear is a stand-up comedian who flops more often than he succeeds. Gonzo is a stunt performer and performance artist that is perhaps too unconventional for the mainstream. Piggy is trying to play the role of a media diva, but can't keep the image up because she's just gotta karate chop people. And Kermit's the glue trying to keep it all together. And you know what? They don't deride each other for their failures. They don't make fun of each other. They have each other's backs even when things are barely holding together. It's an entire franchise built on the struggles of starving artists. And as a starving artist myself, I greatly appreciate that, and I greatly appreciate the way the Muppets tap into that sense of camaraderie among artists. They're the traveling circus, the theater troupe, the garage band, the deviant arters and the YouTubers and the podcasters trying to make it work. Now, A Muppet Family Christmas isn't about trying to make art in any direct sense, but instead the struggle typically associated with the Muppets is applied to having a successful Christmas. Nobody gets the Christmas they really wanted. Ma Bear planned to catch a plane to Florida, Doc planned to have a quiet Christmas in the country, Miss Piggy wanted to balance Christmas with her career as a fashion model, the Swedish chef wanted to make the best Christmas turkey you've ever seen, oh my god. But the best laid plans of mice and men and all that. Much in the same way that a Muppet Show performance that goes off the rails becomes something new and still entertaining, this celebration of Christmas winds up becoming something wholly unique and positive. I wouldn't be presumptuous to call this a universal experience. Not everybody celebrates Christmas, of course, and there are those unfortunate enough to have never had a good Christmas ever. But the idea of a perfect Christmas is pretty much unattainable due to the whims of chaos and the subjectivity of what any given person considers perfect. You burn the Christmas dinner, somebody doesn't have the reaction to a gift you were expecting, your grandma's flight gets delayed, the weather's crappy, your niece won't shut up about politics, the power goes out. No, even just small things like a string of bulbs going out on the Christmas tree or Uncle Joe blinking during the family photo. The world isn't a fairy tale. We don't live in a Thomas Kinkade painting. Imperfection is a fact of life. But sometimes those imperfections are what give that particular celebration its uniqueness. You make creative workarounds, you improvise, you make personal connections that perhaps you didn't intend. What may have been very frustrating on the day becomes a funny story that'll look back on as time goes on. This kind of experience is not something considered positive around strangers because who wants to display their imperfections around strangers? And it's not considered positive around people you don't like because you don't want to be around those people to begin with. The perfect, imperfect Christmas is something you do around people of a certain level of intimacy. Family. But family is not, by default, the people you're related to. If they are, that's great, but close friends can be family. Your neighbors can be family. People you only know online can be family. Defining the emotional connection that is family by genetics is short-sighted, just in the existence of step-parents and adopted children. For me, the best definition of family I've heard comes from Tim Minchin's Christmas song, White Wine in the Sun.
And you won't understand, but you will learn someday that wherever you are and whatever you face, these are the people who make you feel safe in this world.
Come on. Oh, Mom, I want you to meet someone. This is my boss, my friend, my inspiration, the one who gave me my big break in the show business, Kermit.
Oh yeah, the lizard.
Due to their strong bonds as friends, co-workers, and fellow artists, the Muppets are a family who make each other feel safe in this world. And seeing as they are beloved children's characters, they also made generations of children feel safe as well. You are part of the family. The other Muppet factions represent different ideas of family. Sesame Street is about the relationship between neighbors. They're the local community. They enter the special as carolers, like a church group or some local volunteer organization. The Fraggles represent the people in our lives who don't really celebrate Christmas. They have their own winter gift-giving celebration, and as such aren't really involved with the actual Christmas festivities. They're the people in our lives who are celebrating Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or the winter solstice or just don't believe in all the commercialism. And then we have Doc. Doc is the only human character in the special, minus the cameo at the very end. He's also the only character with an actual arc, and as such he is the backbone of the entire story. Doc is from Fraggle Rock, but he doesn't interact with the Fraggles themselves. The only puppet character he's known to interact with is his dog Sprocket, who's really realistic as far as Muppet dogs go, exemplified when Sprocket and Rolf meet up early on.
Woof, woof! Yeah, bark, bark! Oh,
Don't you just hate it when you can't speak the language?
Suffice to say, Doc is largely isolated from Muppet tomfoolery.
Tell me, Sprocket, are these everything like these Fraggles you keep telling me about?
Actually, he's pretty isolated in general. He prefers isolation. He's not some weird hermit or anything, but he does seem on some level introverted. He doesn't need company and wants his Christmas to be nice and quiet, which the special does not in any way look down on. The way Doc wants to celebrate Christmas with just him and his dog enjoying a nice warm fire and a book to read is not an invalid way to celebrate Christmas. However, when the Muppets arrive, that's not what Doc gets. Instead, he gets a bunch of loud weirdos with no sense of personal space. Doc doesn't know who the Muppets are. He doesn't know who the denizens of Sesame Street are. He only knows Ma Bear as his temporary landlord, and he even expresses surprise that she's a bear when first meeting her. Even though Doc is a character from a Muppet production, he is not really acclimated to the Muppet reality. And over the next hour, we watch as this guy comes to learn who these wild characters are and what they're about. They grow on him, and he comes to accept these gay liberal art house types, I mean Muppets, for who they are. He watches their home movies, he recognizes them as people. Monster people, animal people, abstract people, but people nonetheless trying to make this the best Christmas they can. And it's Doc who decides to go out into the storm and save Miss Piggy.
Really worried about your friend, aren't you, Kermit?
oh well, yeah, a little.
I'll tell you what, I'll go out looking for her.
Really? But you've never even met Miss Piggy.
Well, we never met any of you on a little while ago, and now we're friends.
Oh.
You see, Sprocky and I were going to spend Christmas alone, but this is better. Now, what's your friend look like?
To begin with, she's a pig.
Well, up to a short while ago, I would have thought that strange. I'll give it a try.
Gee, thanks, Doc.
Doc's story is about becoming part of a family, from the uncomfortable stage of getting to know somebody to the realization that you consider this somebody a friend. By the end of the special, he's part of the chorus, singing carols to the end of time. Pretty much every element of this special is about the family bonds made between strong friends. And it's no surprise because not only was this a big Christmas reunion for the Muppets, it was a big Christmas reunion for those behind the Muppets. People drift apart with time. Kids grow up, they move out, couples break up, jobs pull people away from each other. They have fights, they pass away. By 1987, the core talent of the Jim Henson Company was already spreading out, doing their own things. While Jim Henson himself was always proud of what he had accomplished with the Muppets, he had spent a great deal of the 1980s trying to find new and interesting projects to invest in. This most famously resulted in 2 fantasy movies, The Dark Crystal in 1982 and Labyrinth in 1986, which both got middling reviews at best, and the latter bombed in the box office. Henson was also trying to develop a number of alternative television projects that emphasized the use of new television technologies like computer graphics and chroma keying, with very un-Muppet-like aesthetics, even if sometimes Muppets like Kermit were actually featured in them. A test pilot for a show called Inner Tube was pitched, and attempted satire on those early days of cable television, but it failed to sell because, well, I've seen it and it's not very good. The jokes don't land, and these unsettling human puppets distract more than they impress. More successful was The Storyteller, dramatizations of European folktales, which had premiered on NBC at the beginning of 1987. But the budget per episode was too high to be profitable. At this point, Henson had stepped away as a performer and was focusing more on the business and production side of things. He was trying to run a company while following a creative trajectory that just wasn't catching on with the mainstream. Frank Oz, the second biggest name associated with the Muppets, had stepped away to direct films outside of the company. After co-directing The Dark Crystal and fully directing The Muppets Take Manhattan, Oz directed his first non-Henson production, Little Shop of Horrors, in 1986. And by the time filming for this special began, pre-production for Oz's next film, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, would have already started. Longtime Muppet writer Jerry Jewell had spent the last 4 years working pretty exclusively on Fraggle Rock, which was wrapping up its last season in 1987. In fact, outside of a few very minor cameos, A Muppet Family Christmas would be the last major appearance of the Fraggles until 2012, when they appeared in a music video for Ben Folds 5. 3 major tentpoles for the Muppets, all separated and doing their own things. With a lot of struggling projects on the table, Henson got the idea to put them all together into one show, and began developing what would become known as the Jim Henson Hour, a weekly anthology program similar in vein to something like The Wonderful World of Disney, with Jim Henson himself opening the show, much like Walt Disney did with his. A series of rotating segments, the show included rebroadcasts of The Storyteller, as well as something known as Muppet Television, which was created using the assets developed for Inner Tube. Of course, you gotta sell this show first, so Henson began developing a 12-minute pitch reel that got a lot of the old gang back together. Frank Oz came back to perform Miss Piggy and Animal, and Jerry Jewell found himself writing for the old Muppet characters for the first time in a long time. By all accounts, as brief of a project as it was, the old Muppeteer gang had a good time with it. Jewell had found a creative spark from the experience that resulted in him drafting up a script for his Christmas special that would bring the Muppet, Sesame Street, and Fraggle Rock teams together. Henson loved the script, and everyone was available, so A Muppet Family Christmas went into production in September of 1987. The production was as much of a reunion for the creative team as much as it was for the Muppets themselves. Along with Henson, Oz, and Jewell, you had Jerry Nelson, Richard Hunt, David Goles, Steve Whitmire, Carol Spinney, Catherine Mullen, Karen Prell. The special was co-directed by Peter Harris, who directed almost half of the episodes of The Muppet Show, and Eric Till, one of the Fraggle Rock directors, as well as the director of the Muppets' previous Christmas special, The Christmas Toy, in 1986. It really was a family reunion, a production motivated to get a bunch of old friends together in the same spot. When Carol Spinney, the man behind Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch, came on set, Jim Henson met him with a big, warm, "Hello, Muppets West!" The clear love and affection these people had for each other poured into the production, and you feel it in the special itself. You feel the energy of performers just loving where they are right now. And the audience back in 1987 felt it too, because A Muppet Family Christmas was a smash television success. The Muppets were back in the news, not just with good reviews, but with reflective, nostalgic pieces. And after 30 years, it was finally becoming clear how much of an institution the Muppets had become for so many people. Something I think Henson was realizing at the time, something you can sense from his cameo at the end.
Well, they certainly seem to be having a good time out there, Sprocket. Yeah, I like it when they have a good time. But I tell you what, somebody's got to do something about these dishes, Sprocket. Come on, I'll wash and you dry, okay?
Sadly, the success of the special did not carry over to Henson's other projects. The Jim Henson Hour ultimately did not do well, starting a chain of events that would end up with negotiations with a merger with Disney. A merger put on hold by Henson's untimely death in 1990. A Muppet Family Christmas would prove to be the last major success of his lifetime. I would rather have Jim than not, but if you're gonna go out, then going out with a celebration of love and family and strangeness is probably the way to do it. Christmas is about family, and family is what you make of it. The Muppets are a family, the Muppeteers are a family, and this special celebrates all of that. And I hope it's the kind of Christmas you can all have this year. One that isn't perfect, because none of them can be, but one that's perfect enough for you, with those you love. If those people are the ones you're related to, fantastic. But family can be a number of things. Try to be with those you love and send your love if you can't. Be a weirdo, but a nice weirdo. And I hope these holidays wash away the frustration and the struggles of the year, at least for a moment, and try to make it count, as if this was your last. Merry Christmas to all my viewers new and old, to my relatives and friends, to Mom and Dad and Amber and Newell and Dawn and Sage, to Charlotte and Spencer and Sophia and Greg Dean, to my grandpa and my cousins and my aunts and my uncles, to those I've lost touch with, to those I've held and hold no longer, to my family. Merry Christmas and a happy holidays.
Old friends, new friends, home with the family. We'll be together at Christmas. Snowflakes, sleigh bells, bringing back memories. We'll be together at Christmas.
Some things change with passing years. Let this feeling stay.